Hello and welcome, a brand new edition of Sound Off Sports. We're going to be talking about the UNLV Runnin Rebels. Can they rebound from that disappointing season opener? Plus, if you could have any Raider of all time in their prime join the team right now, who would it be? Plus, a little later on, Nevada Secretary of State Cisco Aguilar joins me here in the studio. Let's do this thing. SOS starts right now.
Make some noise. This is Sound Off Sports, sponsored by Silver State Schools Credit Union.
Can the Runnin Rebels rebound after the loss to UT Martin? Terry Titus on Facebook says they did. They'll be 2-1 after beating Montana. From there, not sure. See if they click.
What's up, everybody? Thanks so much for joining us and hanging out with us here on Sound Off Sports. I'm Mike Davis, joined by James Edward Barrickman IV. James, we must be getting big time or something, because the Nevada Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar, came on this show.
In the building.
Here. He's here for us.
No big deal or anything, not to brag, but we got some big dogs on this show right here.
That's a big dog, and people are going to be excited to check out that whole interview. It's going to be a lot of fun, but we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Of course, as always, 702-855-3502. Give us a buzz. We always like to hear your thoughts, but we're starting off the show with the UNLV Runnin Rebels, James, and of course, this is a team under a new head coach, Josh Pastner, coming from Memphis, coming from Georgia Tech, and they lose the season opener to UT Martin, 86-81. A disappointing defeat. We asked everybody at home whether they could rebound from that. My answer to that, James, it's a simple yes. They already did. They beat Chattanooga. They whipped them, 101-69. This is a team, listen, there's a lot of newness here, a lot of transfers, a new coach, a new system. Of course you want to win that game on a night where you're honoring Coach Tark and his wife.
I think that's the most disappointing thing, is it was supposed to be
a gimme.
Yeah. On the night you're honoring Tark and his family, for that loss to happen in that spot in the first game of a new era, of a new head coach that has fans excited, that's brutal.
It's brutal.
And Coach Pastner said he was sick to his stomach. He couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, he should be.
He should be. It was any coach would be upset with 22 turnovers. You're going to lose that game. They scored about 21 points off those 22 turnovers. But I want to talk about the good, because, of course, that game, I think it was even a pay game where they actually paid to play them. That's what I've read. So it's not good when you lose that, but they turned it around. And here's the good stuff. They do have a lot of prominent players on this team. There's some
good players, man.
Really good players. So a few things. Number one, they've been out with a lot of injuries. A lot of good guards have been out with injuries. I'm talking Miles Che, who came from Cal. This is a guy who is going to be the starting point guard, potentially a face of the franchise kind of guy. He's been out. Two other guards were out as well. So stepping up in their presence were these two forwards, Kamani Hamilton, who had 19 points and 9 boards, I believe, in the Chattanooga win. And then a player I'm most hyped about is Nas Cunningham. This is a guy in 2022 was the number 1 player in the country. He's a 5-star recruit. In 2024, he was like a top 40 recruit. This guy had 25 points off the bench. These two forwards, Hamilton and Cunningham, they're going to be the juice that really propels this team throughout the entire season. So if we can ride their coattails, James, and maybe get some of these guards back, Runnin Rebels could be a pretty decent team, I think, this year.
I think when you look at, and to answer the question at hand here, they can turn it around, yes. Are they going to be a tournament team this season? I don't know. It would be nice. I don't know. I will say this, though, and I'm just seconding everything that you just said, there's a lot of talent on this team. You look at, according to 24/7 Sports, the second-ranked transfer portal class in the Mountain West, and I'm just by my own evaluation, I'm not quite sure how it was number 2 behind Colorado State. I think it should have been 1. I'm going to chalk up that Game 1 loss to injuries, jitters, and missed shots down the stretch. Coach Pastner said this was not what we saw in practice. They were doing things that we don't coach. I don't know where that came from, and I believe him. We've had him in here because we have big dogs on this show, and you just see it's an obsessive attention to detail, a laser-like focus. So I trust the guy to get this thing figured out, especially with the talent in here. And I couldn't agree more with everything you said about Nas Cunningham. That is a guy who Runnin' Rebels fans should be very, very excited about. 5-star recruit out of Jersey, was at Bama, redshirted his first year. He's a redshirt freshman. He could be here for the long haul. And you lose a guy, the kid from Vegas who transferred to LSU. His name is slipping, DJ Thomas.
Yeah.
Slipping in my mind right now. You lose a kid like that, but you're able to replace him with a guy like Nas Cunningham. Great job by this staff.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of talent on this roster, especially if they can get the guards back in play. But Nas Cunningham, he's going to be the dude. And if he could drop 25 a night and you got some help from some of these other players, it's going to be a special thing.
I'm excited to see what they look like when they're fully healthy and in conference play, hopefully. We'll see.
And that first game, I mean, losing to the Skyhawks, it was an ugly defeat, but they were leading at halftime. Right. So, I mean, something happened in that second half where the turnovers and, it's a new team. So it's a jitters thing. It's an unfortunate loss, but to bounce back, which we asked everybody at home, they already did. When you drop 101 in any college basketball game, that's pretty good. So if they can score the ball, put the ball in the hoop, that's going to be a good thing for this team, and we'll see what happens. But, guys, coming up right after a short break, we got Nevada Secretary of State Cisco Aguilar joining us. We'll hear from him just after these words.
Can the Runnin' Rebels rebound after the loss to UT Martin? Vernon Reese on Facebook says, maybe. Is the NIT meaningful?
Now, as we're, traversing your career history and stuff, so obviously you get the job from Jim, then you get meet Andre, and then from that is where the athletic commission stuff comes into play, right? And this is something that you didn't really particularly want to do because there is a lot of pressure. It's not just like you have said in many interviews, it's not just going to every UFC fight and having a ball. There's a lot of pressure associated with it, and from what I have heard, you instituted a lot of different, like drug testing was something that happened under your watch with UFC. So tell us how that came.
Well, first of all, I wanted to be on the tax commission.
Wow.
And so I was nominated to the tax commission by the general counsel at Southwest Gas.
I didn't even know there's a tax commission to be on.
Actually, being a 29-year-old, going on the tax commission, you actually make some money.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, this is great. This is an option. And then I got a call from the governor's office, and they said, hey, good news, bad news. You're not getting on the tax commission, but we are going to consider you for the athletic commission. I thought, yeah, that's never going to happen. Every Nevadan wants to be on the athletic commission.
Yeah.
And so, I sat quiet for a couple of weeks and then finally got a call from the governor's chief of staff. And they were like, hey, the governor's going to make the announcement in the next couple of hours. Be ready.
And what did you do day one?
Day one, I started talking to the former commissioners that I knew, John Bailey, who's an amazing lawyer in town. And he explained to me what the responsibilities of an athletic commissioner were, what your job was to do, and it was your main responsibility was protecting the health and safety of the fighter.
So that's the main. So as a sports show here, that's the main thing you're worried about.
Yes.
24/7. So
absolutely.
How, if that's the for Secretary of State, the job title is official record keeper responsible for business registration, supervising elections, and officiating documents, right?
So all of that is very similar to the job of an athletic commissioner. So because as an athletic commissioner, you are a regulator. It is your responsibility to call balls and strikes and to know the rules, but not to deviate from those rules.
So explain this to me.
Okay.
So how... If that's the job title, how are you the first person to institute drug testing?
Well, it was kind of a conversation and a challenge from Dana and the UFC. They said, hey, look, if you really care about this, you really need to look at this.
Yeah.
And they're like, it was kind of like this, I don't know what lunch it was, but I was sitting there and we were going back and forth about drug testing. And they said, yeah, if you really wanted to do something, I was like, okay, that's a challenge. I'm going to do it. I got in my car and I immediately called USADA. And I talked with Travis, who was the CEO there, and I said, look, what do I need to do to institute a really strong drug testing program within combat sports?
So Dana and his team were kind of trying to test you to see if it's something...
because I had brought it up before.
Right.
Because as I learned more and more and watched this process, I was like, this doesn't seem very... up to date. We could do better. But then there are the dynamics of the business side of things, right? We're on the strip, you have the gaming revenue, you have the betting revenue. And it's like, what is it that's going to happen? And I thought the integrity of the sport goes to the actual natural body state of the fighter. If a fighter is manipulating the process, they're not only manipulating the fight, but they're manipulating a lot of external activities. And we have to get back to the center and say, this is legitimate.
Right. And teach us, because you're so good at what you do. How were you able to broker this with a guy like Dana? Why could somebody else before you not make this happen, but you could?
I think, one, because, in some ways I was naive to what the challenge would be, being young, but also to understanding that it was for the betterment of the sport and doing it quick and fast. And at Agassi, whenever we did something, it was always finding the smartest people out there to help you.
Yeah.
And Harry Reid said this all the time. If you want to be successful, you have to hire people smarter than you. And we've done that in the Secretary of State's office. But knowing who the smartest person was on, athletic testing was USADA at the time.
I'm happy you brought up Harry Reid, because you worked as a law clerk for him. When was that in this whole story?
It's a funny story. So I don't know if I've told it very many times, but working for Jim, I was in law school.
Yeah. And
Jim would come to Tucson, and one of my jobs was to pick him up at the airport and then bring him to campus or take him to the hotel or go to lunch.
Can I interrupt? Maybe this is a stupid question, but it's just how I'm wired. You're like you graduated from law school.
I'm still in law school at this time.
Okay, but still, I guess, and I think this is maybe a lot of young people struggle with this, but it's like, did at any point, I'm just going to be honest, were you just like, I'm going to be a lawyer, like, why am I picking you up? Like, that kind, call an Uber kind of vibe? But I'm just asking, because I think that's a special quality that you have, that humble nature to you. But don't you think a lot of young people would struggle with, why is my job description ever, I'm also got to get your laundry? Is it, but you were okay with that, and I can see you're genuine about that, but why are you okay with that? And a lot of other people in those situations would have been like, all right, thank you so much to the Nevada Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar, for joining us here in the studio. For the full interview, go to our YouTube page, Silver State Sports.
You're watching Sound Off Sports, sponsored by Silver State Schools Credit Union.
Welcome back to SOS, everybody. We asked everybody at home a really interesting question. I have to give producer James, credit for this. We asked you all at home, if you could pick any player of all time from the Raiders in their prime, and you can insert them on this current Raiders roster, who would you pick? And I think it's a very good exercise, because as I was going through my notes, researching, doing all my due diligence, I started learning about, what is the issues with this team right now? If you had to pick one player, one person, the construction of these other Hall of Fame Raider teams, what's so different? And I've come to a lot of different conclusions. But before we do my conclusion and your conclusion, because I'm excited to see what you're going to say. You don't know my pick, and I don't know your
this
pick.
is going to be fresh for both of us.
So we'll see. But let's first go to somebody at home and see what they had to say.
All right, so this was Victor Knight on Facebook. He said, Gannon, Plunkett, Stabler. Hell, I'll even take Tuiasa Sopa at this point. Tuiasa Sopa, UW guy, played for the Raiders in the early 2000s.
Wow. So quarterback-driven league. We all know that. And as I was doing my research, there's so many classic Raiders players, so many Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
It's actually remarkable.
One of the most historic organizations in sports. That's why it's so sad to see it like it is today.
Exactly. So I think, from conducting my research, of course, you think about all these legends, the Bo Jacksons, the Marcus Allens, Fred Biletnikoffs, the Lester Hayeses of the world, the Howie Longs. There's all these guys. But I think at the end of the day, this is a quarterback-driven league. And if it's not a quarterback-driven league, the next position that is a true premium is really offensive line. And to me, I think the trenches are what makes everything flow. And when you go back to these Raiders teams, you start seeing wow, they had playmakers, they had the quarterback play, but they also had O-lines that were ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, over the years, they had Art Shell, Jim Otto, and Gene Upshaw. So that's a tackle, a guard, and a center who are all Hall of Famers playing crazy long careers. Mm-hmm. And you're almost going to have success just having an O-line that's dominant.
If you can just move people like that, heck yeah.
Of course.
100%.
So I think all of those would be good answers. But I think at the end of the day, it is a quarterback-driven league. And I think the one guy you would take is Ken the Snake Stabler. And I would go with the lefty because of a few things. One, he's the first guy to bring the Raiders a Super Bowl title. It took him to the Super Bowl twice. He was a stud, just a guy who was a baller. He was clutch. He was accurate. He was good on kind of off the cuff and just kind of making things happen. But the dude had the pedigree too, from the SEC with the Tide. He was just a guy who was a winner. And
you hear the way his teammates talk about him too.
Right.
Love that. They can't speak highly enough of Kenny Stabler.
I know he's my dad's favorite Raider of all time, and he was always obsessed with the guy.
Interesting.
So I think Ken the Snake Stabler is the number one choice you would take, because I think his skills, his attributes would lend itself well to an O-line that maybe isn't Hall of Fame. But I think he could, make stuff happen still with a team like this, because he was good down the stretch. He knows how to win. He would take them far in the postseason. He's a winner, And I think a lot of times having the skills, but also having those intangibles to just be a winner, that's what you need at the quarterback position. And if we could have a guy like that who won with the Tide and won at the pro level, that's the guy you would want to have. So that's my pick.
I am between three different guys. And one quick thing on Kenny Stabler, 1972 AFC divisional round game, immaculate reception game. There is no immaculate reception without a massively, massively huge clutch touchdown run from Kenny Stabler to put them in that position. And people forget about it because obviously, the luckiest play in NFL history happened. Anyway, I'm between three guys. Kenny Stabler is one of them.
Okay.
Rich Gannon is another one.
Okay.
And Derek Carr is my third. I think the right answer here.
Three QBs and not even Jim Plunkett's not in the conversation.
No, and you could have went with LaMonica too. And those two are in my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Right, so I have 5 quarterbacks on this list. 2 of them are honorable mention. It's hard, man.
How is it hard? How could Derek Carr be in the same conversation?
You're going to make me mad, Mike, because
You think Derek Carr is better than Kenny Stabler?
Listen, I don't like comparing eras, right? Because they were 2 very different games.
Yeah, but winning
with different technology.
Winning is winning.
Winning is winning, but situation matters, does it not?
I know. We didn't see Derek Carr with Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, and Jim Otto.
We saw Derek Carr with 6 different head coaches over the course of 10 years.
I got it.
His situation was not the same. So I understand that you can't say Derek Carr for the reason of he just doesn't have the accolades that Kenny Stabler has, that Rich Gannon has, that Plunkett and
Kenny Stabler won an MVP.
Kenny Stabler is an MVP,
won an MVP too.
Yeah, 2002 MVP, 2-time All-Pro. Honestly, if I had to lean, I would go Rich Gannon, just because
I just don't like the Derek Carr thing. You can't. Derek Carr's not at that level.
Listen, Raider Nation. Just so I don't make Raider Nation mad, you can't say Derek Carr. The right answer probably. The politically correct answer, I should say, is probably Kenny Stabler. But honestly, if it were up to me, I would lean Rich Gannon. Just because the era in which he did it was a little more like the one we're in today.
Yeah, he was a pocket passer. Yeah. He was a guy who, listen, he did a lot of great things with this organization.
But 2-time All-Pro, 2002 NFL MVP, 2002 AFC champion. With that roster, one of the things I thought was really interesting when I was looking at all this, he had in 2001 a 35-year-old Tim Brown and a 39-year-old Jerry Rice, and both of them went for over 1,000 receiving yards.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2 of the greatest wide receivers who have ever played, but on the latter ends of their career, to both go over 1,000 yards in that era,
crazy.
I think speaks a lot to Rich Gannon.
Rich was great. Rich was a great player.
I think my answer would be Rich Gannon, but we want to know what people have to say.
We got to know what everybody at home has to say. We got, I think, one more response, James. Let's get that one last response.
So this is Dennis C. Radula on via email, I should say. Interesting question. Today's Raider team needs help in various areas. At first, I called into your station and said Cliff Branch would be a sorely needed wide receiver with world-class speed and ability. But after watching Thursday Night Football, Raiders versus Broncos, it's clear Vegas Raiders need a quarterback. For this reason, Kenny Stabler, a.k.a. the Snake, would clearly enhance the offense. Kenny Stabler is my pick.
There you go. Kenny Stabler, the lefty, the stud.
And that was
Hall
the
of Famer.
Of all
That
the
consensus.
collective, it was the consensus answer.
I think you got to go with the guy who delivered the Super Bowl. That's my take. Guys, coming up after a short break, we're celebrating the AL Rookie of the Year playing for the A's, Nick Kurtz. That's next. All right, it's time to talk about the big Amish. James, let's clap it up. Nick Kurtz.
I'm churning, baby.
Churn that butter.
Yep.
Churn that baby. The big Amish, Nick Kurtz, for the Athletics, wins AL Rookie of the Year unanimously. Pretty big deal. 22-year-old, hits 290, 36 homers, 86 RBI. He gets called up April 23rd.
Was just mashing AAA pitching.
It's incredible what he's done. And when you think about the future of this Las Vegas A's franchise, hopefully one day, it's amazing what they got coming here. I mean, having Kurtz, having Jacob Wilson, who came in second in rookie voting at 23. The young
Don't
core,
let that part of it get lost in all this either. The A's had the top 2 Rookie of the Year vote.
I know. And really, Wilson was the front runner
for a long
the
time.
first month or two of the season. And Nick Kurtz, I mean, obviously we did Covering the Bases with the A's here on Triple SEN and Fox 5, and it felt like, James, week after week, we're just talking more about
like, how much more
Nick
can we
Kurtz.
talk about this?
4 homers in a game,
Yeah.
the grand slams. It was a lot of great stuff. And
6 for 6, maybe the greatest game at the plate ever. He just made it a ton of fun to do that show. So shout out Lancaster, PA, or Lancaster, or however
Lancaster.
you say it.
Lancaster.
Got it.
Really good. The Amish food, man, is pretty good stuff up there. But thank you for all tuning in this time on Sound Off Sports. We want to thank Secretary of State, Nevada Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar. So thanks so much to him for joining us, and we'll see you next time here for SOS.